This is CBC Vancouver News.
I will not mourn, nor will I rejoice. Death is not something to be taken lightly. I've learned that the hard way.
A BC mother serving a life sentence for murdering her 8-year-old daughter has died in prison. Plus,
42% of all Metro Vancouver homeowners are mortgage-free. Giving them a grant just simply doesn't make sense to me.
the debate continues over homeowner grants in BC. What about renters? And
I would honestly love to see her expression on that.
a BC woman is boldly going to her final resting place among the stars, with some stars. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A BC woman convicted of murdering her daughter has died in prison. Lisa Batstone was serving a life sentence for killing 8-year-old Tegan Batstone in 2014. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Liam Britton. Liam, first of all, what do we know about Lisa's death?
Well, Correctional Service Canada says Lisa Batstone died at Fraser Valley Institution in Abbotsford on Monday. No cause of death was given, but officials are reviewing it. And Batstone was convicted in 2019 of second-degree murder for the killing of her daughter Tegan and was sentenced to life with no chance of parole for 15 years. Evidence was presented that she did it to spite her ex-husband. Batstone's state of mind was the major issue at trial. Her lawyers argued she suffered from borderline personality disorder and anxiety, but the judge said Batstone was still morally culpable for what she termed a, quote, abhorrent breach of trust. She appealed her conviction 2 years ago, arguing her mental illness was not given sufficient weight by the judge, but that appeal was rejected.
Liam, Tegan's father attended much of that trial. What does he have to say about his ex-wife's death?
Oh yeah, Gabe Batstone now lives in Ottawa with his wife and their 2 sons. He says he will not mourn nor rejoice at Lisa's death, and it's memories of Tegan that are front of mind.
We think about it every day, but she lives on with us in our hearts. We talk about her every day. Tegan would love this. We have a playlist called Tegan's Tunes, where we sometimes just play Tegan's favorite music, and her pictures are all over the house. So I think we found a way to mourn her, but then move on and actually just have her live on with us.
Now, Gabe has called for changes to how child custody is handled in divorce cases. He argues the best interests of children must be the priority, not the parents. Now, I've also heard from Lisa's lawyer, Eric Gottardi. He says his team spoke with Batstone in December, and she seemed in good spirits. He called her death a complete surprise. In a statement, he says Lisa suffered from severe depression and other mental illnesses. She reached out to the healthcare system and begged for help only days before the death of her daughter. He added that because of her mental health, he felt Lisa deserved better care and support throughout her life. And Gottardi is calling for public answers on how Lisa Batstone died. Dan?
Liam Britton reporting. Thank you. The BC government has been fined more than $700,000 for unsafe wildfire mitigation work. WorkSafeBC says it found evidence of unsafe tree falling practices at a work site near Wannawan, about 80 kilometers northwest of Fort St. John. The agency says the province did not verify faller certification or actively monitor work as required. BC's Forests Ministry says the fine is arbitrary and disproportionately high, and it plans to appeal. Heads up transit users across Metro Vancouver. The union representing nearly 200 transit workers employed by Coast Mountain Bus Company has issued a strike notice. As Jessica Chung explains, job action could start as early as this weekend.
QP Local 4500 says it's serving 72-hour strike notice after a day of mediated negotiations with the employer. It represents more than 180 transit workers, including supervisors, engineers, and maintenance workers. The last collective agreement expired at the end of 2022. Negotiations for a new contract started this past October with the Coast Mountain Bus Company, which operates Metro Vancouver transit buses. The union says job action is a last resort, but it maintains the employer hasn't addressed key issues in the negotiations.
At the end of the day, it was pretty clear that the employer wasn't ready to address our main issues. So we had no choice but to take this drastic action.
For its part, the company says it has offered the same wage increase given to its other employees. Job action could begin on Saturday morning with an overtime ban. It would affect all operations in the Coast Mountain system. The union says it is willing to negotiate a collective agreement that avoids service disruptions. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
Warmer winter weather may be welcome news for some British Columbians, but Environment Canada warns it's brought some dangerous concerns for the spring. Zara Premji explains on the uncertainty in the months ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be a little bit worried.
BC has had a wildly warm winter.
Definitely a weird season.
And what that could mean for the spring ahead has experts concerned.
We haven't built the snowpacks that we need this time of year.
This is the reservoir at Cleveland Dam. As you can see, it is filled up, the water is flowing, but that wasn't the case just before December.
Environment Canada says the bit of rainfall that has come has brought some reprieve, but just not enough.
While we went into this sort of fall, early winter in a drought situation, we haven't really done much at this point in time to alleviate it at all.
In December 2022, this is what it looked like on top of North Vancouver's Mount Seymour. On December 30th, 2023, just days ago, this is what it looked like. The snowpack clearly not where it was in previous years, and the concern climbing, even if cautious optimism is there too.
It's kind of one of those wait and see things. We've got, typically we can get a good snowpack through January and February on the coast, so we're still hopeful.
Metro Vancouver says the water restrictions won't start any earlier than the planned May 1st, but after that, staff will assess to see if the next stages need to kick in earlier.
Unfortunately, people in this region are some of the highest water users in Canada, so we've got a lot of improvements that we can do for water conservation and to make sure that our water lasts us through the season. So it's something we should be mindful of all year, not just, when we see a drought coming.
But with no certainty on what the future holds, a lot of uncertainty remains.
Probably a top of mind for many people, what's it going to do from a fire point of view moving forward?
As we wait to see just how wet and cold the next couple of months will be, Procter & Walsh are warning British Columbians to conserve water. Let that lawn go gold and don't wait for an official advisory. Conserve now and all year round. Zara Premji, CBC News, Burnaby.
A BC woman is set to make history years after her death. Her ashes will travel on board a rocket soon to be launched into space. As Saurabh Sandhu reports, it's a memorial journey in honor of her passion for Star Trek. And she won't be alone among the stars.
Next week, when the ship known as the Vulcan rocket takes off from Florida, it will be flying with more than just spacefaring equipment. It will also carry the ashes of Gloria Nolan, a 86-year-old Vancouver woman who died in 2011.
She was very interested in things to do with space and extraterrestrials, the paranormal, and reincarnation.
An avid Star Trek fan, Gloria Nolan loved to collect replica starships. Every Christmas, adorning her tree with Star Trek ornaments. After her death, her children decided to honor her memory by sending her remains to space.
I think she would have been quite surprised at the fact that we had made this choice. I would honestly love to see her expression on that.
Nolan's ashes will be carried in a capsule aboard a deep space Voyager mission known as the Enterprise flight. The capsule will also carry the DNA of Wendy Doohan, whose husband James Doohan acted in the original Star Trek series. James Doohan's ashes were also flown to space after he died in 2005.
It's kind of joining Jimmy on this space mission that he's going on right now.
Celestis Inc., the company behind the service, has been offering the memorial space flight for a number of years.
Imagine it's like a time capsule, a cosmic archive of our civilization at this point that will be out there in orbit around the sun forever.
But this will be the first time that human DNA will be going into deep space.
But it will be the furthest repository of our civilization out that far in the solar system.
Space flights usually carry commercial or government satellites depending on the mission. But this Celestis spacecraft, a specialized capsule attached to the main rocket, will have on board small samples of hundreds of human DNA.
We send what we consider a symbolic portion, which is about 1 gram.
The capsule will also carry the DNA of several other prominent personalities, including Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry and his wife, Majel Barrett Roddenberry.
You can go to our website and you can see where your loved one is over the Earth, literally traveling like 17,000 miles an hour in orbit, orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes.
The rocket takes off on January 8th from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, taking Gloria Nolan along with many other devotees of space to their final resting place. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, White Rock.
If you own a home or property in BC, you've probably applied for it, the Homeowner Grant. It allows most homeowners to get hundreds of dollars directly from the province every year. The government updated the rules around it yesterday, but as Justin McElroy explains, others wonder if it's still necessary.
British Columbia does something no other province in Canada does: give hundreds of dollars to homeowners every year, regardless of income, age, or their home ownership status. All they have to do is apply for something called the Homeowner Grant. As the government lays out on its own website, pretty much any homeowner can get either $570 or $770 from the government, provided their property is assessed at less than $2.15 million. Which is more than 90% of homes in this province. Now, every year this becomes a story because the magic number to get the grant goes up. And every year there are people wondering why British Columbia does this.
42% of all Metro Vancouver homeowners are mortgage-free. Giving them a grant when so many other people are suffering just simply doesn't make sense to me.
That is Michael Geller, a Vancouver developer and architect. He argues it's not a smart tax for a lot of reasons, including the fact that it's province-wide, and a $2 million house in Vancouver looks a lot different than a $2 million one in the rest of this province. But he understands why politicians won't touch it.
Given that 60% of the residents of British Columbia are homeowners, suggesting that you might take away their grant is not politically astute.
We asked the government for their thoughts, and they said they thought the benefit was modest and argued that renters are now going to get a similar program in the form of a $400 rebate. Well, sort of. Here is a chart. Yes, that renter's rebate is coming that will max out at $400 a renter household, but the province estimates it will spend $910 million on home owner grants this year. Now, there are around 1.4 million households that own their property in this province. So do the math, cover the zero, and they're getting a lot more cold hard cash from the government than renters will get in the form of a tax credit. But we do a lot of things differently here in British Columbia, and you can add the money we give to homeowners to that list. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police officers will start wearing body cameras this week as part of a 6-month trial.
Where you have a public that essentially carries around with them in their pocket a high-definition camera, that for police not to also have such a camera recording their in particular hostile interactions with the public, that it may lead the public to say, well, why don't they have that camera, and actually hurt in the trust equation.
The department says up to 100 officers will be trained and more than $300,000 spent on this test run. Body cams were recommended by a coroner's inquest looking into the beating death of a man in Burnaby. Miles Gray was killed in a 2015 confrontation with numerous VPD officers. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is recalling some baby formula products over bacterial contamination risks. Take a look. It's recalling the Nutrimidgen A+ with LGG hypoallergenic infant formula. The batch of products have an expiration date of January 1st, 2025. If you bought the recalled products, you're warned not to feed them to children. Instead, just throw them out or return them to the store where you bought them. From rent to grocery prices, the rising cost of living was a huge concern in 2023. And forecasts predict prices will continue to rise in the new year. Benit Braich shares some of the things you can expect to pay more for this year.
Here's what will cost you more this year in BC. Let's start with groceries. While some food will get cheaper this year, like dry goods and non-perishables, overall grocery bills are still expected to go up. According to this report, the typical Canadian family of 4 can expect an increase of about $700 in their annual food bill. You'll likely see the higher prices for baked goods, meat, and vegetables. So what about utilities? FortisBC, which provides power to some parts of BC, has raised electricity rates by 6.74% this January. This will cost the average customer about an extra $11.26 per month. BC Hydro has also applied to the BC Utilities Commission for a 2.3% rate hike that would start on April 1st, 2024, if it's approved. But if you lower your household's energy use by 10% this year compared to 2023, you'll be eligible for up to $100 in BC Hydro credits under the Team Power Smart Conservation Challenge. And what about housing? Well, if you're renting, landlords can increase their rent up to 3.5% this year. Meanwhile, house prices in Greater Vancouver will rise about 3% according to this market survey forecast. It's lower than the national average, but houses in BC are still the priciest in Canada. And if you're taking the ferry starting April 1st, BC Ferry's fare prices will go up by an average of 3.2% each year for the next 4 years. The Ministry of Transportation says provincial funding helped minimize the fare from being even higher. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
A Greater Victoria couple has discovered a famous wartime mascot in their shed. Muggins was known for raising records amount of money during the First World War, encouraging people to drop change in tins outside the legislature. The dog was so beloved when he died in 1920, he was taxidermied and used for fundraising in the Second World War. But in the 1950s, he vanished. A couple then realized they were unknowingly harboring a hero.
I said to Phil, "That looks like the dog we have in the shed." I'm really happy that we were able to bring him back to life, so to speak.
Yeah. Not every day you rescue a 104-year-old dog.
Muggins' next trip may include a visit to a local museum. Another island couple has evicted a black bear after finding it trying to den underneath their home.
When we went down there, my husband found a black bear like right in his face. He jumped right back and was like, "Oh my God, the bear is right there. It's right there." And he broke his leg a while ago, and I've never seen him move so fast.
Conservation officers say you can avoid bears taking up residence under your home by blocking off any ways they can get in. If it does try to get in, you're asked to contact the service's Human Wildlife's Conflict Hotline.
It took an hour just to see a triage nurse.
Long wait times in ERs across Canada as hospitals experiencing severe staffing shortages. That story's next. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. Some marine biologists are raising the alarm about a proposed nuclear waste site northwest of Ottawa. They say it could threaten an area where endangered mussels are thriving. As Stu Mills shows us, the species is already in danger of extinction elsewhere.
Earlier this fall, Dr. Andre Martel and his team of scientists dipped into the Ottawa River here. A wild, 141-kilometer-long, free-flowing section near Westmeath, Ontario.
You're looking into the transect.
Yeah. People are not fully aware of the amazing diversity of habitats, of the unique habitats that this 141 kilometers of river really is there, because you've got free rapids, large rapids, you have spawning grounds for sturgeon, near natural flow, fish abundance is stunning, diversity of habitats.
The longest underwater cave network in Canada, uniquely formed river sand dunes, and an incredible flourishing population of a small brown mollusk.
It's a freshwater mussel. It's a native freshwater mussel of our watershed. And it was collected in 1885. Can you imagine? And it was collected not too far from the Parliament Hill, just downstream by a few kilometers.
The hickory nut mussel is endangered, but here, in this special part of the river, Martel believes it has made a secret life-saving allegiance with a giant prehistoric fish.
It's hard work.
Lake sturgeon can live 100 years and grow to 2 meters in length. This fall, Martel's team sampled sturgeon in the river near Westmeath to try to prove that mussel larvae are spreading here by hitchhiking upstream on the gills of the fish. At the same time, a consortium led by SNC-Lavalin has proposed a nuclear waste site just upstream at Chalk River. The plan's been panned by Quebec mayors whose residents draw drinking water from the Ottawa, and by Algonquins who've likened it to an outhouse built next to a drinking well.
I would have some concerns over any type of development that would have the potential to lead to contamination of this water system.
The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission wouldn't answer questions on the Chalk River site, including potential effects on river species, until a decision on the site is made. That's expected in the next few weeks. Stu Mills, CBC News, Gatineau.
Emergency rooms across Canada are struggling to deal with a surge in respiratory illnesses like COVID, RSV, and the flu. The situation is being made worse, though, by major staffing shortages. As Lauren Pelly reports, it's led to overflowing hospitals and long wait times.
You're going to sleep right after, huh? Of course you are.
While many Canadians relaxed over the holidays, Joey Salmingo took his newborn to a crowded hospital with a fever.
It took an hour just to see a triage nurse.
Oh, I know.
And it was 7 more hours until Salmingo's son was admitted to a bed.
So as the hours just went by, obviously the frustration, the anger is setting in.
Patients across the country keep facing those kinds of hours-long waits. In Quebec, provincial data shows dozens of hospital ERs are overflowing. And the average waiting time on a stretcher hit 18 hours by Tuesday afternoon.
This is the worst the healthcare system has been ever. You know, we're seeing patients in stretchers laying there for days on end.
This nurse in Montreal says long waits are tied to ongoing staff shortages and pressure from the usual respiratory viruses, plus COVID as well.
COVID is rampant throughout the hospitals, throughout every unit.
At St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, upwards of 10% of patients on the wards are COVID positive.
It's often COVID intersecting with other illnesses and making people sick enough to end up in hospital.
He says most patients falling seriously ill with either COVID or influenza are also people who didn't get the latest vaccines. Federal data shows only 15% of the population got an updated COVID shot this fall.
Our vaccination rates across most populations and age groups, and in particular in children, are lower than we have seen in the past.
Doctors say there's still plenty of time to get those updated shots. COVID is still circulating, and the flu season in much of eastern Canada isn't expected to peak for several weeks. That means a busy winter ahead, and the more Canadians who can stay out of hospital, the better. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
There's a live shot of Burrard Inlet towards the North Shore. Russ Lacate will have your cooler BC forecast right after this.
So some might say, and I would agree, that it's the pinnacle, of the community, and it's a place where people gather to socialize, to have fun, to exercise, and to be social with others in the community. Yeah, so we're very excited about our new stones. For a small club, it's a big deal. Our old stones, to my knowledge, have been around since the early 70s, maybe even the late 60s, so they have 50 plus years of usage, and that's more than the normal lifespan. Yeah, so today we have our after-school junior kids, grades 2 to 7. They're a fun group. We have approximately 23 kids in total. Sometimes it can get chaotic. They're great kids. They do their best. They really enjoy not only curling, but the social aspect of hanging with their friends.
I like to slide rocks, and at the end they always give us hot chocolate.
It feels great to have new stones. The old ones were pretty rough and dented. These ones are nice and new. We're breaking them into the ice.
I like sliding very much. I also like sweeping.
You're trying to throw your rock into the big circle. We work together and try to win the games, and we have fun pretty much.
Yes, anybody gets sad, we cheer them up.
They were teaching us how to slide out and throw a rock with a curl to it so it turns.
It's great to have the kids involved. They're the future of our curling, and we're super excited to have them here.
I'll keep playing until I die.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for the BC-wide weather forecast and a hint of snow with meteorologist Russ LeCate.
Snow.
It's something at least 1 to 5 people are talking about.
It's and 3 of them are in this building.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than that,
you counted,
we will
so did I.
enlighten the viewers who've stayed up late with us tonight talking about our chances of snow. Well, for parts of the lower mainland, more importantly for the North Shore Mountains, and it is on the way. Got to be patient. It's still about 24 hours away. What we're looking at really is that jet stream offshore, which again is splitting into, and it's opening the door as it backs off to allow a much more northerly jet to set up towards the start of next week. And of course, when that jet weakens over its northernmost branch there, it allows the Arctic front to begin to move southward. Tomorrow's high, about -19 in Fort Nelson, a couple of centimeters of snow, -11 in Fort St. John. It remains cold over the north, but I wouldn't call that a real Arctic deep freeze. Give it a few days, and we'll be talking about 25 to 30 below zero for a high for these areas in the northeast. So it's definitely trending colder. Across Dees Lake, some light snow, -10 tomorrow. Terrace at 1 above with sort of a mix of rain and snow. Be mindful, heavy accumulating snow expected to be continuing overnight and early tomorrow in Stewart, where there remains a snowfall warning in effect. Central part of the interior, some very light flurries, maybe a centimeter's worth. A couple of sunny breaks peek through in Prince George. It really hasn't cooled down yet. Give it a few days. This weekend will be about 10 or 15 below. Southern interior beginning to cool down this weekend as well. I want to talk about what's happening here in the mountains because Whistler still at +2 tomorrow. It's a little sloppy in the village. Mid-mountain and above gets snow. Our freezing level very close to 1,200 meters. So setting up for midnight tonight, a little mixed precipitation over the highest elevation of the North Shore Mountains. Tomorrow morning, more of the same, maybe a bit of snow over the peaks. But late tomorrow, as that wet system moves through, the freezing level falls. That makes a big difference. So our long-range forecast has rain Friday, snow on the ski hills, cooler and clearer this weekend, a chance of mixed rain and snow near sea level early next week, Dan.
There's the plan, folks. Thanks, Russ.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. It starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.